I bet you didn't know that someone made a fortune of $13 billion in just a year and a half. And he's only 28 years old. People call him the Silicon Valley Prodigy. Can you guess who it is? Let me ask you a question first. What were you doing when you were 20? Eating or playing, studying, playing video games, or working part-time? It's normal to do any of these things. That's how life should be at 20. But the guy we're talking about today is a little different. I bet you didn't know that one of Silicon Valley's brightest minds started his journey in Taiwan. The story begins in 1978. Steve Chen was born into a family of intellectuals in Taiwan. His parents were both educated people. When he was 8 years old, his family moved to the United States because of his father's job. Our Steve Chen probably didn't expect that this move would be the starting point of his legendary life. After arriving in the United States, Steve Chen was like a fish in water, quickly integrating into American life. American schools were much more relaxed than those in his home country, which gave Steve Chen more time to do what he loved most: computer programming. You know what? He first came into contact with programming in a book, and it was love at first sight, an obsession that couldn't be stopped. Just think, by the 6th grade, he had already mastered the basics of computer programming. By high school, he was already proficient in Basic and C language. Do you think it's a gift? Let me tell you, it's not. He was actually just an ordinary kid. The difference was that when others were going to class, he was programming. When others were traveling, he was programming. When others were falling in love, he was still programming. Steve Chen devoted 100% of his energy to studying programming. Give him a thumbs up. After graduating from high school, Steve Chen was admitted to the University of Illinois, ranked 5th in the United States. It was a gathering place for computer programming talents. Steve Chen was so excited to be able to study programming with a group of like-minded people. His daily routine was to skip classes during the day and stay up all night writing code. He himself said that self-study was much more efficient than attending classes. I don't think people understand the magnitude of Steve Chen's decision when he joined PayPal. Just as Steve Chen was about to graduate from college, fate gave him a big break. In a technology group, he met Chad Hurley, the CTO of PayPal. Chad immediately recognized Steve Chen's talent and invited him to join PayPal. Faced with such a sudden opportunity, Steve Chen made a decision in just 15 minutes to drop out of school and go straight into the arms of the Silicon Valley giants. Doesn't that sound a little crazy? But that's our Steve Chen, a true entrepreneur who dares to take risks and pursue his dreams. Others saw the risk of him giving up his college degree, but he saw the infinite possibilities of entering Silicon Valley and realizing his dreams. And so, Steve Chen boarded the train to Silicon Valley and began his extraordinary entrepreneurial journey. That decision not only changed the course of his life, but also brought the world YouTube, a company that has changed global video culture. In 1999, at Chad's recommendation, Steve Chen joined PayPal, which had only been founded for a year. But he didn't expect the work intensity and pressure to be much greater than he had imagined. Imagine working until 4 or 5 in the morning every day, and the working environment and accommodation were very basic. But Steve Chen's love for programming made him put all this behind him and devote himself to his work. In this way, Steve Chen and his team worked hard for 3 years and finally made PayPal go public. And Steve Chen, at the age of only 23, earned a reward of $2 million. This is truly a victory for youth. Ho, 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 ho. Not long after going public, we know that PayPal was acquired by eBay. This acquisition was not only a change of company, but also a cultural shift. eBay's management model was relatively centralized, and programmers were not as valued as they were at PayPal. In this environment, programmers had little say and had to follow the lead of their superiors. This situation made Steve Chen feel very uncomfortable. At first, he could bear it, but after 3 years, he couldn't stand it anymore. He had been hoping to become the head of PayPal's China project, but the plan eventually fell through. Steve Chen decided to leave PayPal and start looking for new opportunities. This is gonna blow your mind. So, he decided to take action. He hit it off with a few of his programmer friends, and they started their entrepreneurial journey. Guess what? They came up with the idea for a social video dating platform. Hey, they thought they could start a business and solve their personal problems at the same time, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Ho, 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 ho. On Valentine's Day, coincidentally, they named this dating site YouTube and bought the domain name youtube.com. At first, Steve Chen hoped that users could introduce themselves on the platform, describe their ideal partner, and then upload the video. But after YouTube went online, Steve Chen found that things were not so simple. For 5 whole days, there was not a single user on the site. Ha! This is understandable. Ha ha ha. Master's Offer Is Here website has no one to click on it until now. Embarrassing. It was at this time that a tsunami gave Steve Chen inspiration. In the 2004 Phuket tsunami, a car mechanic used his mobile phone to record the shocking moment. The video spread like wildfire online, and the number of views soared to 680,000. This incident made Steve Chen realize that YouTube should become a comprehensive video platform. Whether it's a carefully produced video or content shot by users, it can be uploaded. So, Steve Chen decisively changed YouTube's positioning. I bet you didn't know how YouTube's journey began. On April 23rd, 2005, the first thunder finally came from YouTube. The first video was uploaded. A man pointed at an elephant in the zoo and talked about their long noses. Although it was only 19 seconds long, it marked the beginning of the YouTube video era. What happened next was like magic. Thousands of videos sprung up on YouTube like mushrooms after the rain. In just 1 year, the number of videos exceeded 4 million. YouTube quickly became the largest video site in the United States. YouTube's valuation skyrocketed as it became popular. Finally, just 20 months after its founding, Steve Chen sold YouTube to Google for $13 billion. 13 billion. Do you think it was sold for too much? Or too little? Hey, let's not worry about it. It doesn't matter how much it's sold for. The money won't go into our pockets anyway. Let's just be happy. At that time, Steve Chen was only 28 years old and became a billionaire overnight. He was also featured in Fortune magazine as a candidate for Fortune's Person of the Year. Ho, 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 5 times ho. I'm sure you've heard the news, but just as his life was at its peak, a sudden bad news broke everything. Steve Chen, a young talent with a thriving career, suddenly fainted at the airport after meeting with US President Barack Obama. Then, the hospital's diagnosis was even more shocking. A brain tumor. This news was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue for Steve Chen, who had always been clear-headed and decisive. All the honor, money, and achievements became insignificant at that moment. Steve Chen began to reflect deeply. Having brushed shoulders with death, he felt fear for the future for the first time. Should he continue to fight or choose to stop and enjoy life? Steve Chen said, "Since everything you have may stop abruptly, why not choose to do something more meaningful? Before that, give him a thumbs up." In the end, Steve Chen chose to move on. He worked while receiving treatment. In 2008, he underwent brain tumor surgery, and the surgery was miraculously successful. Haha, Master wants to say that God really doesn't want such a young and talented fighter to end the battle so soon. Steve Chen's optimistic spirit also brings us a lot of inspiration and thinking. He only rested for a few months after his brain tumor surgery before he devoted himself to his work again. And pay attention, here comes the climax of the story. This is gonna blow your mind. Steve Chen actually quit his high-paying job at Google and decided to embark on the road of entrepreneurship again. He said, "When you realize that everything can disappear in an instant, you will understand that you should not waste time. You should not live a boring life. You should not waste your life." Wow, that's inspiring. The great scientist Albert Einstein once said, "To regard comfort and happiness as the purpose of life, this ethical basis, I call it the ideal of the pigsty." Doesn't this mean that a life without ideals is like a walking corpse? No matter how handsome a man is, he is useless without responsibility. No matter how beautiful a woman is, she is just a decoration without self-improvement. No matter who you are, it is better to be a struggling loser than an ordinary person who is content with the status quo. This is Steve Chen's philosophy of life. The purpose of building a ship is not to stay in the harbor, but to ride the wind and waves. The purpose of being a man is not to hide at home, but to realize one's dreams. It doesn't matter who you were in the past. What matters is who you want to be in the future. Just think, Steve Chen, who was worth tens of billions of dollars before he was 30 years old, never gave up fighting even in the face of illness. So, what reason do we have to be lazy? You need to hear this if you're an aspiring entrepreneur. Steve Chen's entrepreneurial spirit is worth learning and following by each of us. So, remember what Haha Master said today. Life is endless, struggle is endless. Keep on fighting until the last moment of life.